Civic Engagement is the service that connects people to the community they live in. What do we know about it, and how can we become a part of it? Today, to discuss part 3 of our 3-part series in Government 101 is Dr. Zulema Blair, who is chair of the Public Administration Department at Medgar Evers College. Also in this program, Curtis Alexander will be telling us about his new music, and we'll be teasing you with a bit of that music. But we begin with civic engagement. Dr. Blair, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, as always, for having me.
Let's begin. We ask you, please explain to our viewers, what is civic engagement?
Yeah, very simply, civic engagement is a process. It is about developing the knowledge and skill sets needed to participate in civic life and through non-political processes. It leads to a political process, but first you have to develop civic awareness and a civic identity because it is about your passion and how you wish to participate in civic life.
There is a Civic Engagement Commission in New York City. What are their responsibilities?
Their responsibility is really to engage all those who are least likely to be engaged. Um, they are supposed to help people register to vote. They are supposed to teach people about civic life. They are supposed to help people find their civic identity. They're supposed to help people find their civic passion. They are supposed to provide ways for people to become civically active. And in doing so, they are teaching people about the civic process. So, for example, one of the things that they do is participatory budgeting, where they have people, um, individuals in public schools, high schools, saying, where do you think this discretionary money should be spent? Where do you think our money, our taxpayers' dollars should go? So that's one avenue. Another avenue is just teaching them in general. So civic engagement is a process. You cannot understand or participate unless first you learn, then you develop where you develop an awareness, and then you would develop the need to participate. So there are two different avenues. There's civics, and then there's politics. And so the bridge between both actually is voting. And so once they cross that line and register in the vote, then they're there. But the Civic Engagement Commission is all about teaching, maybe even adopting different schools so that they can get into the habit of doing so, and commissioning, if you will, different organizations to take charge and give them an avenue to volunteer in civic life.
You talked about voting, but we'll discuss that in more detail in a short while. How does civic engagement impact our communities?
The more civically engaged an individual is, um, the more likely they are to participate politically. The more civically engaged an individual is, the less likely they are to commit violence, for example. The more civically engaged an individual is, the more likely they are to um, do good and donate more of their time and pay it forward. So more and more people, the late John F. Kennedy, not to uh, uh, be so politically inclined, said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? And so what he was saying was get involved more in civic life, so that you can build this social capital amongst people. And the more you are socially involved, right, the less likely we are to have any antisocial behaviors.
Let's talk about students in schools. How does this work for students?
So it begins in the classroom. Again, going back to civic learning. Um, Teachers and professors have to find a way to incorporate civics without incorporating politics. There's a way to separate the two. Reading the newspaper, that's one. Watching the news, discussing just daily activities, just talking about what the Constitution means to them. That's another. So it begins with civic learning, and this has to happen. I teach at the collegiate level, so say this has to happen in their first year. If it happens in their first year, they're more likely to get attached to it because learning develops in your first 2 years of school, right? The the most more now. That's why students find out what they need to do in their first 2 years, and then you should encourage students to join a student activity, student government, maybe not in their first year, but maybe in their second year. But then they go on to do an internship, maybe in their second and third year. You see, there's growth. It's a process. And then in their fourth year, they're ready to take on the world, right? These have spillover effects into society. These have spillover effects and create a more democratic lifestyle.
You talked about democratic lifestyle, but let's get back to politics. How is politics tied to civic engagement?
So you once you develop this interest, this civic identity and this civic interest, you want to see it play out in public policy, whether it's arts and culture, whether it's you know sports, you whatever interest you have, you want to see it play out in public policy. I'll give you an example. A lot of young people had ties to hip hop, and what happened? They rallied for a hip hop museum. It played out in public policy. That took a public budget to do that. So you want to see it play out there, so you're going to vote for that individual that's going to make it happen. That speaks to your interests, that speaks to your heart, and that speaks to your lifestyle.
People say that politics is involved in everything.
Every
What are your
aspect.
thoughts about that? Go on.
Every aspect. When you wake up in the morning, the air that you breathe. Now we're discussing air quality again, right? When you talk about heat waves and cooling centers, politics. Whether it's the cost of gas, politics. A gallon of milk, politics, right? So politics is involved in terms of prices, inflation, home ownership, housing insecurity, food insecurity. It's all politics.
Politics often have a negative connotation. What do you say to demystify that?
Oh no, you gotta love it. No, no, no negative. You have to do your research and not be out mobilized. Voting, let's start with voting. Voting is actually where everyone is considered equal. When you and I go to the polls, we're two equals. We're pulling the lever, we're two equals. We're mobilized, our communities are mobilized around particular issues, whether it's race relations, whether it's gender, whether it's urban versus suburban politics, so we're mobilized, and the key is to not be out mobilized by another group. We want to be the in group. We want our voices heard. Government and public policy is about who does what and why, and who gets what and why. So if you do not vote, I know it sounds cliche, but you can't complain. You won't have a say, and you have to be efficacious enough to want to have a say.
What resources can our viewers access to learn more about how to get involved?
They can access Ballotpedia. Um, just go to ballotpedia.com or Google Ballotpedia. You will see who the candidates are. You will see what's on the ballot, who's running for office. It also has access to your ballot. You can put your address in and have access to your ballot so that you can see who's on the ballot. This year it's congressional races, it's assembly races, it's county committees, it's judicial delegates, and district leaders. So for assembly districts. So you can go to Ballotpedia and find out who's on the ballot. It's municipal judges. Those are races. They're elected for 10 years. You can find out how long the terms of offices are. You can also go to New York State Board of Elections and New York City Board of Elections to check things out. And don't forget to look up, you could go to polllocator.com to see where you actually go to vote.
So voting is very important and it's part of the process to help run our government. Please explain what happens when people do not exercise their right to vote.
Well, people think that they don't have to respond to you. Because even if you vote and you turn out, your community turn out in numbers, and it's not the candidate of choice that wins, they still have to respond to you because they know that your voice is significant. But if you don't turn out to vote, they feel that they do not have to respond to you because you did not exercise your right. I'm sorry. So voting is where it's free and it's fair elections. Okay? This is where you are free to make a choice. It is the one political act that establishes any democracy. So when you don't do that, you give your rights away.
We celebrated Juneteenth. Talk a bit about the importance of Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. Well, this is our Independence Day, right? And this is what should be celebrated wholeheartedly all over. It is a federal holiday, finally. It is when we were freed from slavery. And so we all know the legacy that slavery left, counting us as three-fifths of a person. We are no longer considered that, although the statistics may show that we earn less, we own less, but there are things we can do to turn that around if we vote for the right people to lead us in office.
I believe that lots of people are absent from the process because they say they don't know the candidates. Talk about that.
There are plenty of ways to um, research who is on the ballot. The candidates come around. As I mentioned before, there's Ballotpedia that you can see who the candidates are. You could do the research. You could see what candidates stand for. Um, they should be in line with your principles. And this is why civic engagement and civic learning is so important, because by then or by now, you would know what your political preferences are. Are you a Democrat or you're a Republican? Are you a progressive or are you a centrist? Are you a moderate or are you conservative? And, which one of these candidates lined up with those principles that you represent? And you're not going to get an exact match or an exact figure, but you will get someone close to it, and you should vote your conscience.
How do people stay informed about the candidates they should be voting for and the importance of their participation in the voting process?
So the way to stay informed, the quickest way, you could watch New York One, News 12. They cover good information uh, daily on what's happening in your boroughs, in your counties, or throughout New York City politics in general. You can look at any local newspaper and find out what's going on. And talk to your peers. If you go to church, they're in the church. I'm sure if you go to a black church, political candidates have you know graced the black church. So from time to time, talk to people. They're the best. Word of mouth is the best way to find out. But if not, I would say News 12, New York One, black newspapers, Amsterdam News. Those local newspapers will give you the lay of the land.
Dr. Blair, I thank you for the information that you provided, and we hope that the result of this will be that people are more informed, people are better informed, and that people will be civically engaged. You got 10 seconds. One last word from you.
Vote. It is not only your right, it is your civic duty. Vote.
Curtis Spita has a new video and he's going to tell you about it, and you'll hear some of it. Curtis, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us about this new video.
So this new video is called the 420 Anthem. And a lot of people will know that recently in the last few years there's been a lot of decriminalization of marijuana usage. And this is a record that I wrote over 10 years ago, and I decided to revive it and release it in wake of this decriminalization, and just make a song that is an anthem for people to enjoy when they're enjoying 420, or also any type of vegetables and fruits. It's very themed in natural plants, and it just, when you listen to it, you'll hear a lot of references to vegetables and fruits, which is code for the 420.
Okay, you've been performing many places. What are some of those places you've been performing?
So I've been doing some performances in Queens, New York, in Brooklyn. We've been doing a lot of 50th anniversary hip hop performances. And I recently actually just went down to the island of Grenada to collaborate with some artists down there, which I didn't know had such an amazing hip hop scene. So I've been collaborating with some artists down there and also doing some shows as well.
I was going to ask you about Grenada. You are from Grenada, are you?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I'm the first generation born in America, but my family, my mother and father, they were born and raised in Grenada.
You had a song called "I'll Always Come Back." What's that about?
Well, it's just, honestly, it's just something that's within me. It's just something that I realize as the more I live life, I realize that I always circle back to the places where I've been at an older age with a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more experience, and I just go back and appreciate it for what it was.
Is "I'll Always Come Back" on the video as well, or on your album?
So I Always Come Back was actually like it was actually a song that I just did, and I just kind of like released it on the internet for free. So you could go and check it out on YouTube. There is a video that I did for it as well. And yeah, but it's a free song on SoundCloud and on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. What about "Come Back to You"?
Well, yeah, Come Back to You that's the record that I did for free.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard "Come Back to You." I love it. I'm sure our audience will love it as well. On the video, what have you talked about on the video? I know you're singing on the video, but what have you talked about on the video?
So in that particular video, I was basically just speaking about my experience and just chasing my passion, which was to basically be able to perform music for a living, and just what it takes, learning the business, meeting people along the way, and just kind of I basically went from being on a regular block in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, to being in the same room as people like Akon and Young Jeezy and the Nappy Roots. And I had to reflect in those moments. I had to take a pause and be like, wow, like Like, you know, these are the people that I used to listen to as a kid coming up, and I'm right here in the same room as them. So it just let me know that when you put your mind to something, you could achieve it.
That's right. You've got a website. Tell us the name of this website.
Website is www.iamspita.com. So that's IAMSPITA.com.
And what is the I am about?
So, well, I am is a very deep statement, but what it means to me is just who I am. Like, you know, it's what can I say? It's basically, this is me. This is what you're getting, and I am. You know, that's the best way I could put it.
What responses are you getting to your music?
So I get a lot of interesting responses. My music is more on the conscious, uh, um, has an old school flavor and vibe to it. So I tend to basically draw in more of an audience that's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and they like to hear these type of references. They're poetic, and yeah, I get pretty decent responses as well. But sometimes I get some negative responses as well because what I've learned is that a lot of people are really into just entertaining things and stuff like that, and not really trying to hear positive messages all the time. So I got a mix.
You mentioned the word poetic. Do you write poetry?
Yeah, so that's how I started. I started off writing poetry at a very young age, at about age 7. I was introduced to poetry by my first grade teacher in PS 167 in Brooklyn, New York, on I think it's on Eastern Parkway, by a lady named Miss Harris. And she basically taught me a lot of things that about poetry, and from since then I just kind of been writing.
We're going to play a little of your music right now.
First I cop it, take it, break it, roll it, light it. I'm excited, just can't hide it or try to fight it. Just inhale and breathe. I feel my stress start to ease on an exotic island, feeling the ocean breeze. 99 problems and they all drop into knees. They all a bunch of breezes blowing on me hands free. It's what the best things in life are. You busy popping bottles at a night bar. Nah, can we get much higher? Of course, it depends on the grade you desire. My supplier ain't a liar, so I'm easily a buyer. As soon as I get that text, yo, I got that fire. Leniency, please judge, I got no priors. That shit feels smooth like a racing car tire. I take you through the wire, burn her eyes, you admire breath. At these heights, supervision is required. It's 420, yo. It's 420, yo. I'm staying high till I die and I ain't scared of yo. So much live value max up in this room, that's why I'm packing up my bowl with all these vegetables and fruits. It's 420, yo. It's 420, yo. I'm staying high till I die and I ain't scared of yo. So much live value max up in this room, that's why I'm packing up my bowl with all these vegetables and fruits.
Let's get back to your album. The music on your album. Which music do you like most?
Well, I like all of my music is very dear to my heart. I take a lot of time into writing. I'm very serious about it. So I feel pretty good about all the music that I put out there.
Okay. Well, I congratulate you on the music that you've been producing and the music that you've been performing. How long have you been performing? You talked about writing poetry from the time you were at school, but in terms of your performances, how long have you been performing?
So I've been writing and recording for about close to 17 years, maybe 16 to 17 years. I started getting my first opportunities to perform maybe a few years in, once I felt like I had solid recordings. Then I started to network more and start to meet more people that were putting on events and doing open mics and talent events and stuff like that. And then I started to perform. So, but yeah, give or take about 16 to 17 years.
Curtis Spita, I want to congratulate you on the music that you've been performing. Your full name is Curtis Spita Alexander. That's correct?
That's correct. And the people, if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram at IAMSPITA. I am Spita.
Okay, I am Spita. Everyone hear that? Check out Curtis Spita on I am Spita. I want to thank you for being on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me, and also thank you for allowing a platform for independent artists like myself to come on and share my gifts and my talents with the world. I truly appreciate it. And thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Spica, Curtis Spica Alexander. You also heard Medgar Evers College professor Dr. Zulema Blair telling you about the importance of civic engagement and how it impacts everything that you do. And to our viewers, we want to thank you for watching this program. You can watch it again on YouTube, www.youtube.com/Brooklyn45TV. Please support Brooklyn 45 and partner with us. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit community television program. So when you support us with a gift, you benefit, and our communities benefit as well from the information that our guests provide. Please tell your family, your friends, and your colleagues to watch Brooklyn 45. Please support Brooklyn 45. Please be a part of what we do. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I am Sam Taitt.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.